you'll never understand the principles in an intellectual way, because the principles are a spiritual gift. They are a principle. Don't get me wrong. They're foundational principles underlying the human experience. But intellectually, you don't really get a handle on them. Because as your level of consciousness, as your level of understanding shifts and changes, your understanding of the principles change from the inside out. So, for example, the first principle that came to mind for me came via insight. Because my husband and I knew Sid before he had this enlightening experience that revealed to him mind, consciousness, and thought, we found it very difficult to listen to him. We really couldn't listen to him. But there was such a change in his demeanor, in his presence, in the look of him, and especially in the way he spoke. Because you understand, he had been a welder, and he continued to be a welder for 10 months, actually. But he and my husband had worked together for 8 years, and then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, Sidney Banks has this epiphany, and about 3 or 4 days later tells Ken and I he's uncovered the secret to life. And he says it in all seriousness. So I've said this a number of times, but I'm going to say it again. Put yourself in our place. What might have you thought? Or what might you think if you have a friend that comes up to you, or your spouse even, and says, I found the secret to life? What might you do? What might you think? And so even though we could see that something had happened to him, I mean, he looked happy. He glowed with vitality. He carried himself different. He used to walk like sort of hunched over with his shoulders curved in like this, as if he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And indeed, oftentimes, he would relate to us that that is how he felt. Us too. That's why we got along so well before he had his experience. After was a different matter. At first, we would sort of tolerate it, and you know, we wouldn't roll our eyes in front of him. We'd wait till we left the room, and then we go, oh my God, you know, what is this man on about? He's a very nice man. He's sweet, and he's caring, and he's gentle, but what's he on about? He's uncovered the secret to life. How can that be? And we thought, oh, well, you know, he's just, I don't know. And so we didn't pay it too much mind, but it was still intriguing. Despite our disbelief and our caution, there was still something intriguing about his presence and the way he talked. And then as time went on, our resistance increased because he wouldn't stop. We had hoped that it would wear out after 2 or 3 weeks. He'd give it up, you know, because we'd been friends a long time. And Ken had been friends longer with him than I had. But he didn't give it up. And I was thinking, my God, what has happened to this man? Maybe he's on the cusp of a nervous breakdown. But the thing was, my thoughts of nervous breakdown didn't indicate joy and peace of mind and vitality as this man illustrated. So here's my picture of a reality, and here's the reality next to us. So there's a gap there, and what's that about? Long story short, this went on for 1.5 years. And over that 1.5 year period, I became increasingly challenging to Sid and increasingly rude because I became more frightened. As I saw that he wasn't losing his understanding, as I saw him gain more insights, more peace of mind, more contentment, as I saw he and his wife Barb, who had been married for 17 years and had had some difficulty in their marriage, as we did, I saw them become like honeymooners. And they would walk around hand in hand. And they would call each other pet and dear and all this. And it's like, oh, you know, because we didn't have that. My husband and I had been married 14 years at that point. So we didn't have that kind of a relationship. And on one hand, it's like, you know, I liked the feeling, but on the other hand, my ego and intellect said, why them and why not me? So it got so towards the end of this 1.5 year resistance and more challenges, I felt my belief system crumbling. You know, he would talk about these principles. He would talk a lot about thought, because thought had been instrumental in the beginning of his journey that led to this epiphany of mind, consciousness, and thought. The element that opened the door for him was when someone said to him, you say you're insecure, and I've never heard such nonsense. And furthermore, insecurity is just a thought. And Sid heard that. You know, it cracked open the door of his belief system, and it spiritually, mentally prepared him for this epiphany where he uncovered these foundational gifts. And so thought became of interest to me for some reason, and almost despite myself, I would say to him, you know, Sid, you said something about thought, and he'd start to talk, and then I'd say, no, I don't, that doesn't make sense to me. Would you like a cup of tea? I'd change the subject, and I'd make him a cup of tea. And then finally, I said to him, invited him and his wife, Barb, who passed away many years ago now, invited them for the dinner, but I thought I would make the dinner conditional. You know, it's okay, you can come, but you must agree not to talk this nonsense. Only I said a less diplomatic word. You know, in my fear and in my agitation, I said something else that I won't say on camera. But, and he said, well, of course, dearie, you know, I don't talk about this unless someone asks me. And so we're sitting at dinner, and the food is good, if I do say so myself, and the fire is crackling in the fireplace, and it's really nice socializing. And then, again, despite myself, without my volition, the words are out of my mouth, something to do with thought. You know, what did you mean when you said that we have the power to create our experience in life? And he started to respond, and I got indignant again. Right away, I got quite indignant, and I said, you know, I don't want to hear this, Sid, and back and forth. And so that was it, back and forth. Tell me, don't tell me. Tell me, don't tell me.